I was not really ever good at that guitar just a couple years ago. I know that most of you probably know who I am because of the pastor affiliation. But it's really hard to walk into a church and not be noticed because it's the pastor's son. But I really don't have a grand story testimony, although I do have a testimony about how I really came to know God. And believe it or not, it wasn't my whole life. Growing up in a pastor's family, seventh son of 7 boys, I learned a lot of mistakes that my brothers did, and I knew not to do them. And I also saw a lot of good things that my brothers did that I was able to learn from and pursue myself. The first time I had any kind of interaction with worship or music leading in general was my brother Josh, actually. One of my first memories was of him playing in the praise team at my father's first church that I remember in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was one of the first times I really got inspired to try to learn to play the guitar. And if any of you tried to play an instrument and quit, I quit the first time I tried learning. Because I was not that good, he made me feel really embarrassed when I tried to play, and then he'd pick up the guitar. Yeah, it's one of those younger brother things. I gave up. After that, really, the only other point in my life where I really encountered worship was when we went to Peru, Indiana, after all the travels we did. We went to Peru, Indiana, and there, when I went from being in that pastor home, Christian home, surrounded by people at church, surrounded by brothers that were Christians, it was really different for me to step into a public school in high school where you have people who are not only non-Christians, but people who downright just hate God. That was very difficult for me. That was very different for me, and I was not ready to handle that. Because it was almost like I was in a comfort shell where, everybody knew God, or beyond a shadow of a doubt, I knew God was real. No doubt in my mind. Then you put into that setting for me, and it hit me hard. I'm looking back on it now, it's almost like looking like, God knew that He was going to have a plan for me within the next 4 years. He was going to use any of the trials and tribulations of that time to, be good and have a good outcome. But at the time, Satan really tried his hardest to get me. In particularly, I fell into a group of friends at that high school that were not Christians, thinking that, all the lessons I learned when I was younger, get the non-Christians. Get them converted. That didn't do a good job for me. I did not do a good job. I was completely unprepared for that and ended up taking the opposite way in my walk with God than it should have. I know at that school, the group of friends I was hanging out with, the thing to do at the time was cutting, if you know what I'm familiar with. And that was one thing that I did when I was in high school. I've got scars on my hands and on my wrist to prove it. It was a very trying time in my life. It came so far as a couple of times that I tried to end it, and it was not a very good time. I'm talking falling away bad. And it got to a point where I was just, I had talked to God in 6 months. I was going to a youth group at the time that my brother was doing, and played Bible trivia every other week in Sunday school. I won every time because I had all the answers. But it's just like that sermon that he gives every now and then where he talks about knowing God up here and knowing God up here. I never got that far. And it wasn't until the summer in between my freshman and sophomore years of high school that my brother was really putting it on me. Matt, do you remember him? He came to the last gathering. You can tell he's a man very much on fire with God. He's very good, and God has definitely blessed him with his ministry and what he can do with young people. He was really putting it on me and the youth group at the time to go to this concert that he was advertising to us as a concert. We were teenagers. It'd be a cool thing to do, go to a concert. The music I was listening to at that time definitely was not worship. Definitely did not glorify God at all. But when he started saying, I think you'll like some of the music that's playing. I don't recognize any of these band names, but I heard from one of my friends that there's pyrotechnics there when they start the concert, and there's fire, so I'll go and enjoy that. All right. The tickets were steep, price-wise, so we had to do a lot of fundraisers to do it, but God has a plan. Everybody got tickets. We all went. That first night when we were there, they had speakers, they had sketches, they had everything, and I'm sitting there going, man, he really roped us in. He said, we get concerts over, like one band got up and played 3 songs. I got you. So going further into that, they started talking in the sketch, and they started going through a typical high school scenario where you're involved with other kids who are not Christians. And being the pastor's son, I'm sitting there leaning back going, this is going to end. God's going to have miraculous, discovery of some of his kids. They're just going to go along and have a happy ending. It did end like that with the scenario they were presenting with us. And that really opened my mind going, okay, wow, these guys understand what I'm feeling right now. It's hard for a kid to look at all the Bible stories and see how God always comes through and just laying back and expecting that. You know, I'm a Christian, I'll just go talk to these non-Christians, they'll be saved. Okay. Sorry. But yeah, God will make it happen. All I gotta do is lay back, say I'm a Christian, and it'll work. Doesn't work that way. So with the scenario that they were playing, it really affected me and already got my heart open. They concluded it the next night, which was great, but the part of my testimony that takes over is right after that skit, they had a band come out by the name of the Newsboys. They were there. Never heard of them before, never heard their music, but I was just amazed at the ministry that they had, the way that they were performing on stage. It looked like they were performing the way that my bands would when I was listening to them. But looking at the words and what they were singing, I mean, they were just completely glorifying God and what they were doing. It was an amazing time. If you go see them live, definitely go see them live. So that got me up. I realized I was standing, I was clapping, I enjoyed that music. Then the next song, or the next band that came out was the Acquire the Fire band themselves. They're the ones that travel with the program that goes on. They started out with a very rocking song, Shout to the Earth. That's one that I've learned from them and I brought incorporated here to the church. And that one really got me upbeat. It was somewhere in the middle of that song where I realized my heart was beating very, very fast. I just felt this really tight, constricting pain on my chest. Then the next song that they did was Meet Me Here, the one that we sung earlier. And that was one, again, that I incorporated, I stole with you a little bit, and called Here. In the middle of that song, if you look at the words, it's, here I am, desperate for you to meet me here. Here I stand, reaching out for you to meet me here. Come and breathe the peace in me as I fall down on my knees, for I know that as I wait, you will draw near. And the words didn't hit me the first time it was sung, but I felt it. And the first time, I felt like my heart was completely open. And I know that the first time they got to that chorus, the meet me here, all that pain, all that doubt that I had just got shattered. My heart was broken. And they came back around to that verse again. And before I knew it, I know I had closed my eyes. I didn't realize I was just kneeling on the ground, just bawling like a child. And that's the words of that song. Is really where I started feeling God. After that, the great worship leader that he was, he stood up and said, God, again, always having a plan. He stopped the song midway and said, I really feel like we need to have an altar call right now. Now, you have to understand, when paint a picture for this Acquire the Fire, there's 70,000 youth, kids, adults, churches, all in the stadium, surrounding the stage with projectors everywhere, so that you can just see what's going on. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see. Now, I remember being on my knees and just crying. My whole youth group was with me and saw along the same way. I just bowed and just crying like children. And I just remember them saying, we want to do an altar call right now. And I could not get up. I wanted to go down there and say, if you're a Christian, you want to reaffirm your faith. If you're a first-time, visitor of something like this, your first time encountering the Holy Spirit, we want you to come. I want to explain that to you so you don't feel weirded out about it. I felt very weirded out, but here I am, a pastor's kid, knowing I know what the Holy Spirit is, I know what Jesus is, I know all those answers, but I've never felt that before. And so I couldn't get up, I couldn't go down there, but all I remember seeing is 50,000 kids just going down to that altar for the first time, or again, to recommit their lives to God. And that's one thing I'm very grateful for. My brother did have the opportunity to see that. But what affected me most, back to my testimony, was the next song he played while he was saying John 3:16. The next song they played was I Can Only Imagine. And I never heard that song before. And it was in that song that I actually heard God talk to me. It was the first time again. It was very, very powerful. And I'm sorry I never really talked to you about this, Dad, but at the time I was a teenager and I didn't want to talk to you because you were my dad, and it just makes it worse because you were my pastor too. No offense, but that's how it was. So God really spoke to me during that first verse, and I don't even remember the song. I know how he sang it, and that's how I sing it every Sunday when I sit here at church. But I know the words he said to me really didn't mean much to me at the time, but I was so full of doubt that I couldn't believe I was talking to God. He said, "This is what I made you for." Just that song is like that is why you were made. And I didn't really understand it. I mean, at that time, I was playing bar chords on the guitar, which, if you know anything about guitars, is the wuss's way of playing guitar. You can play anything on bar chords. You don't have to be good to play. Guitar Hero really showed that within the last couple of years. So I'm sitting there, I'm answering the voice, like, I could barely play the guitar. What do you mean you made me for this? I quit twice. I'm not any good at it. And he said, I made you. And after that, I went home that night just going, you made me. What does that mean? And so I kept praying, and God said, give me what I needed. And at that time, we ended up, I think we stayed through my sophomore year. It was the next summer, I think, that we left Peru, Indiana. And that would really hit me hard because I'm going, God, you said you'd give me everything I needed. You said I'd get better. And with that, I went home that night, started playing guitar. It was like I woke up a different person. I was very good at the guitar. I was very good at the guitar. I started playing chords. There's chords I wrote for these songs that don't even exist, and I started playing. And you can't find them in a chord chart. I made it. It's probably a note now after so many years, but it's just, I just started playing and had no idea what the chords were. After that, I really took that hard too, because I'm going, you spoke to me, said you gave me what I needed. I started with a couple of youth kids there. We started playing a couple of instruments together, trying to get something together. And the way it went, God called us here. But we came here next. The first memory of this place was the first Sunday at his installation. He asked me to play Open the Eyes of My Heart. And I did that from the balcony because the church here wasn't, I don't think they ever had anybody play guitar in the front before, so I did it in the balcony. I just remember, I was like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, I'll play. Remember the first chord I hit on that guitar, every head. It's like, I can't tell if the people are all new to me. I can't tell if that's oh, cool, or oh. So I took it for what it was. I said, all right, well, we'll see how this goes. Came to find out it was a good oh. But it took a couple weeks after that, and he started getting me in a formation where we were doing pre-service, like once every 2 weeks, or it was like once a month. We started off small, try to incorporate people so they're comfortable with it. And it only took about 3 weeks before I had this little kid with his dad come up to me and say, hey, this is Brennan. He's interested in playing with you. And Brennan at the time was, I think he was 5th grade in middle school. I think he was he was 6th grade actually. But he came up and said, he was interested in playing. And at that time I'm going, oh, well, I can teach you how to play the guitar. He said, no, I think I want to play the bass. Okay. I don't know how to play the bass at that point. So I said, well, we can learn it together. I'll figure it out. First practice we had, I knew how to play the bass. Never picked it up. It makes musical sense as far as theories go. It's a lot in common. Never played the bass before, but I was able to teach it to him. And if you heard Brennan before he left, say, he's pretty good. And again, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, God has a plan. And it only took about a week after that Nate Daniels and his dad came up and said that they were, he was interested in playing too, because Brennan was, they're the same age. And he said, I think I want to play the drums. Okay, here I am, a junior in high school, and I've got 2 middle school kids coming up trying to learn the bass. And Brennan at the time, there's pictures of him with that big Jackson bass of his, taller than he was. And he's just up here trying to play as best as he can with that big bass. And I thought, okay, well, God, if this is what you're giving me, I'll see what I can do. We had some singers with us too, and Spielers came forward, and he gave me a team, and we did it. But again, I started looking at it going, God, okay, if you want me to do this, you need to give me some songs. I want some kind of commitment on your part. And fortunately, if you look at the Bible, when people kind of put God to the test, it doesn't usually work that well. So I went many years without having any songs come to me. And at that time, I started getting frustrated. I was like, okay, well, if this is all you made me for, I'll do it. But I was kind of open for something more. I started losing my focus with the praise team up here, and everybody we stopped practicing. We just did the same 4 songs every 2 weeks, and it took a while before God finally kicked me in my heart again and said, "Hey, this is not what I called you for." And it was just a big awakening again, where I came back and said, "Okay." At that point, a lot of the singers had stopped singing with us, and it came down to just be me, Nate, and Brennan. At that time, I started giving guitar lessons again, and Tony just happened to be one of my students at the time. I remember thinking, all I need is one good guitar player. I was like, I'll give you lessons for free if you just try, if you learn these church songs, you'll come up and play with us. He said he would not play in front of people. So it took many weeks, and it got to the point where he said, no, I'll just pay for the lessons if you don't make me get in front of the people. So I got some money out of it, but at the end I won, and he came up here to play and realized it wasn't that bad. So that's how Tony came up here.
Except you were God winning.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a blurry area at times. Then the next person was Jason. I know I recognized him when he was over at my parents' house a couple times, but I didn't really know him. And Tony had said that he was hanging out with him a little bit, and they were talking. He says, tell him to come to practice. I'll teach him something. He came the next week, started playing bass, and he was with us. Brennan went to the guitar. After that, Kevin started. I was told that Kevin was really interested in playing guitar. I had no idea who Kevin was at the time. So I was like, all right, we'll start bugging him. Tell him he needs to come. And he said, I can always teach him something. There's a tambourine up here at the AP. So I finally introduced myself to him after a couple of weeks. He said, how do you feel about coming to practice? Well, I got a guitar, but I don't think you guys are too good. I don't want to be there with you. Well, I can tell you, everybody started at the point zero, and through God and through us, we build each other up. So everybody starts somewhere. So it took a long time for Kevin to agree to come, because he still has a fear of playing in front of people. But as you can see, it worked. And again, as far as God's playing goes, I know, it would have been about a year after I graduated high school, Brennan called me and said he wants to do Eagle Idol at play, and he has a girl with him that he wants to sing. Came to help him practice one night, and it was Amanda. So I met Amanda, and about a year or so after that, I asked him, what's that Amanda girl doing? And he told me she was a Catholic, so I'll forgive her for that. But what do you think about her coming in? And he said, well, I'll ask her. And again, she's very shy, so she came, wasn't comfortable singing in front of people, but God pushes us all to our limits. She started singing. And from there, everybody's kind of seen the growth that we've had spiritually. God is present here in our ministry team here. I know the one thing that really affected me lately with my walk was about 6 months ago during the summer, I started praying again. And I just happened to mention, how would you guys feel if God just all of a sudden gave me an original song? Would you guys want to learn it? Would you play it Sunday? Would you follow me? Yeah, okay. Went home that night, prayed about it. The next day, God gave me a song. It waited so many years for that, and all I had to do was, everything's had to be set up perfectly for that to happen. So he gave me a song. Next Tuesday, I had it all written out, gave everybody music, said, all right, let's play it. We played it, we learned it, that's Draw Me Closer that we've done a couple of times. That's one of my songs too. The next practice after we played in church, that was a really good song, I like that one. I was like, well, let's pray again and see if God gives us another one. That night, prayed, woke up the next day, another song. So me being stubborn again, at that point, I worked for Meyer, the company Meyer, the lovely store down the street there. And they were offering me a promotion at the time. And looking at it, I was just getting ready to get married, and I had a choice. Obviously, I'm doing the right thing. God has finally given me songs, but do I choose the promotion, or do I choose the songs? Because if I take that promotion, it's going to be less time that I can spend here at the church and spend time practicing. That time, I said, well, God's giving me songs now, he'll give me songs if I don't have as much time. Again, putting God kind of on the back burner. About 6 months ago, it really hit me because they wanted to promote me again. If you know anything about retail, the hours are very long, and they're very unpredictable, and this time of year, it absolutely stinks. That next promotion would involve me having 0 time for the praise team. And when I started doing math, how much time I'd be able to have, I was thinking, I'm not going to have time to do it. Not at all. And when I started thinking about that and praying about it, I started crying. I was like, I could not give this up. There's no way. So I started praying to God and saying, if this is really what you want me to do, reflecting back to when I had that conversation with him when I was a sophomore, I said, if this is truly what you want me to do, give me a sign. Give me something. I will walk your walk. I will do it your way. Just give me a sign. Went home that night. Next day, I had a library of songs in my brain that I couldn't get out. And that's all the songs that I just sent for you tonight. All came to me in one night. Except for, Bible Love. That was during prayer time. But they all just came flooding in, and it's enough to do a CD, and I started recording them. We recently just got a couple done because, again, as far as my walk goes, showing how faithful God is when you actually pay attention to Him. We just recently, a couple weeks ago, like I announced in church, had an opportunity where we just got offered to play in New York City. They said, we we've heard you on YouTube, and through Aaron Collins and his band, the Jesus Saves Project, they got invited also, and we're going up there together to worship. We're the only bands coming from out of state, and we're the only praise teams that are going. And that's going to be for thousands of kids. So this whole thing with this gathering didn't work out with the other band. It really gave me an opportunity to think, this is something I should share with you guys, because starting back when I was going to be a sophomore, God said, I made you for this, and I'm going to be doing that here in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be up there in front of thousands of people, and I'm going to be leading them in worshiping our God. And that to me is just, see, I have no idea what God has planned for me, but I know that I have decided that I am going to go into worship ministry, and that is something I've dedicated my heart to do. I have faith in God, and I just want to see it rewarded, and that's where God is really, truly rewarding me for my faithfulness. So that's my testimony, as of right now in my life. I have a song I'd like to sing that kind of goes along with my testimony. It's definitely one that I enjoy a lot. And if you listen to Caleb, you probably have heard it and enjoy it too. Excuse me, I'm talking about.
Well, good job.
Thank you.
Don't know where to begin. It's like my world's caving in, and I try but I can't control my fear. Where do I go from here? Sometimes it's so hard to pray when you feel so far away, but I am willing to go where you want me to. Gotta trust you. There's a raging sea right in front of me, wants to pull me in, bring me to my knees. So let the waters rise if you want them to. I will follow you. I will follow you. Yes, I will follow you. Yes, I will swim in the deep, 'cause you'll be next to me. You're in the eye of the storm and the calm of the sea. You're never out of reach. God, you know where I've been, 'cause you were there with me then. You were faithful before, you'll be faithful again. And I'm holding your hand. There's a raging sea right in front of me, wants to pull me in, bring me to my knees. So let the waters rise if you want them to. And I will follow you, and I will follow you. Yes, I will follow you. God, your love is enough. I will follow you. I'm holding on to you. God, your love is enough. I will follow you. Yes,